Yes, YouTube, welcome back. And as promised, just going to give a little bit of context into the rebound phase and not just what we're going to do in the gym, but also nutrition. And then the one that everybody wants to know about is PEDs. And like I said, completely open and honest, it is what it is. There's nothing massive going on in here. There's a few bits and bobs here and there, but again, professional bodybuilding at this level, without the best genetics, you need to do some things sometimes that are going to get you to where you want to go. So first of all, we're going to start with nutrition. As I've mentioned on my Instagram, on my stories, and potentially on the YouTube as well, when we transitioned from prep, which was in and around 140 grams of carbs per day every day, a little bit lower on rest days, 120 on a rest day, we went straight to 850 grams of carbs. Within that week, like I mentioned, I put 20 pound on in like 3 or 4 days. A lot of that was water. So I had the lower ankle edema, the swelling, what you'd imagine. And then as the week progressed, that started to drop off a little bit. And then I actually went from 244 pound to 235 pound overnight. So I lost 9 pound overnight and woke up again dry and lean. So all that water had come off. And then from that position, I checked in with meal loss and then it increased my food again. So from the first increase of 850 carb, we're now on about 1,050 carb a day. So I'll just tell you what the diet is, why I'm doing this style of diet. And then obviously we'll put some visuals at the side of me so you can see it. So first meal is we do 50 to 60 grams of proteins through source of my choice, which, as you know, I like the prawns and the salmon, so I just keep that in. That's been my breakfast for years. Sometimes it'll be smoked salmon, but what I've actually done is I've started putting 200 prawns, 100 salmon rather than half and half, just to get rid of some fat that I don't need in that meal. And then the carbohydrates, 125 grams of carbs through, I just use cream of rice there. In between the meals, we're still doing amino acid shakes. So, for example, I'll have my breakfast at 8, I'll have an amino acid shake at about 9:15, and then I'll go to my pre-workout meal, which I've just had there, which is around 10:30. And again, that's the same, 50 to 60 grams of protein, which I'll just use 300 grams of prawns, so 60 grams of protein there, 125 grams of carbs, which again I just go through jasmine rice. Try and keep all the carb sources and all the proteins as clean as possible. Post show, you can, if you want, if you're that way out and you feel like you want to, you can add a little bit of dark chocolate, some low calorie stuff in there to help you get through. But essentially for me, I just want to try and get through this phase as optimal as possible. So then we go to pre-workout, a pre-workout drink. So 45 minutes after my pre-meal, I will then have the insulin. Insulin started at 15 IU pre and post workout. It's now gone to 20 IU pre and post workout. So today, before chest and shoulders, well, actually in about 30 minutes, I'm going to have 20 IU of insulin, which will be Humalog. Now, it will not go any higher than this. 20 is the maximum we will do. The only time it goes higher throughout the day is if we do two sessions a day, then that'll typically be 10 IU pre and post in the evening session. But for now, it's 20 and 20. Again, as we know, Milos is an advocate of insulin and he likes to push it reasonably hard. However, for me as an individual, that is something that works really well and I get on really well with it. In that is going to be 100 grams of carbohydrates. I use a carb powder from my sponsor Strom, and then what I'll do also is have some glucose tablets, which I'll just make the rest up with. So I may do 50 grams and 50 grams, just so I've not got loads of carb powder in 3 shakes constantly. In the session, I'll go 75 grams of carbs with amino acids, and then post-workout again, 20 IU of insulin straight away. And then I'll go 125 grams of carbs through simple sugars. So for me, I just use cereal. So it can be cream of rice, it can be rice cakes and jam, honey. It could even be things like gummy bears, gummy sweets if you wanted to, if you were really struggling post-show. However, for me, cereal, nice and easy, nice and light, just get it in. And then again, 50 grams of protein, through beef and turkey, a mixture of them two, along with 150 grams of carbs. This meal I'll just use cream of rice and I'll add a little bit of banana there, just so I've got reducing a little bit of volume again. In between the meals we do the amino acids, but with this meal we have 75 grams of carbohydrates of choice, which can be cream of rice, rice cakes, or I use the Nutrigrain bars. So per Nutrigrain bar, 25 grams of carbohydrates. Very, very easy to digest, very easy to eat. I use it with my clients. One thing I don't want to do is have a big bowl of cream of rice and then an hour later eat again. I want to make sure that my digestion is as optimal as possible. So I use the Nutrigrain bars there with the amino acids and the glutamine and things like that. And then we go into more prawns. So it'll be another 300 grams of prawns with jasmine rice and sweet potato, going up to 125 grams of carbs there. Meal 5 is egg whites, 2 whole eggs and 100 grams of carbohydrates through jasmine rice, sweet potato or carb of choice. With this meal, I've been doing a mixture of cream of rice and also bread. So I'll do around 50 grams of carbs through cream of rice, 50 grams of carbs through bread. And the last meal is protein shake with oats for 75 grams of carbs. So basically I just make like a little bit of an oat cookie there, which is just mixed together, put in the air fryer. And then sometimes I'll have a little bit of dark chocolate on that, add it to that. However, that is just the meals for the day. That is every single day. There's no differentiation between a rest day. The only difference on a rest day is obviously I don't have pre, intra and post in the insulin. So hopefully we've got a decent visual there of what the carb total is, the protein total and the fat total, which I'll send to Joe. And that's what we're eating currently However, I do check in today, and since this increase, I've actually put no weight on. So last week when I checked in, I was 244 or 245 pounds. This morning I'm 243.5. So technically I'm down 1.5 pounds this week after the increase. So losing a pound and a half on 1,011 grams of carbs seems ridiculous, but a lot of that was water weight. So I've dropped the water weight and now I've climbed back up. So technically, even though the scales are down, I've gained weight, gained glycogen, most definitely. So onto the training. So the training, as you saw from the last video, chest and triceps, back and biceps, legs today, which is chest and delts. So the chest is just a top up today. And then Friday we have arms and Saturday we have back. So at the minute, it's a very interchangeable split. This is actually a split I use for a lot of my clients because it's versatile across the board. If you need more legs, we can add more legs. If you need more arms, we can add more arms. But initially, I'll stay with this. I'll see how things progress. Have a chat backwards and forwards with me and ask if we need any extra body parts thrown in there, any extra volume, any less volume, and we will go from there. So pretty standard and simple stuff on the split with high volume training. But obviously, alongside the high food, the training has to be intense, especially alongside the high insulin. Maximum blood flow into the muscle, creating that, sarcoplasmic style training that we're after. And yeah, the training, that is it. Right, so onto the good part, the part that everybody's most interested in. What does an Ifbb Pro Classic Physique bodybuilder, open bodybuilder take? That I would say I've got average genetics as a pro. It's took me a long time and a lot of work to get here, and it's going to take me a long time and a lot of work to get where I want to get. So a lot of the top guys will inevitably not need a lot of supplements. That's just the way it works. The guys that are winning the shows generally are taking much less than the guys who are coming second, third call out. Call it locker room chat or backstage chat. There's a lot of things that go on. People are open and honest in the circle, which is cool, but not so much on social media, which is obviously a reason for that, for sponsorships, and obviously being frowned upon by the IFBB in terms of talking about these sort of things. But I'd like to educate and also make things clear in terms of what's not necessarily what's needed, because it isn't needed. As I say, I'm not a doctor. I just know what I've done in the past and what's worked and generally where I need to be. So at the minute, the cycle is the one where in the previous off-season worked the best. So when we had a previous off-season, we ran this cycle for a 6 to 8 week block out of an 18-week cycle. And this is where we saw most progress. Now, was it the cycle? Was it a combination of everything just happening to be in synergy at that point? Yes, most likely. However, I got 0 sides from this cycle. I felt very good and I got really strong and I looked very good. So it just makes sense to take something that worked really well at one point and use it again when we need it. So that was sustenance. So at the minute I'm running sustenance at 750 milligrams per week. So I'll generally go in and around 500 usually. I don't really go much heavier than that. However, in this phase, we've gone 750. Now, if you're somebody who puts water on a lot in terms of very sensitive, so I would probably err on the side of running your testosterone lower, just to keep away from that potential water retention that may bring. I know a lot of people who do struggle with water weight, especially as they get very heavy. The bigger guys try and keep a lower amounts of testosterone. So that's something that if you are going to use a rebound phase or think about doing a rebound phase, depending on if you carry a lot of water generally, or you can get away with staying reasonably lean all the time where your testosterone wants to be. So we can get away with 750, which again, like I said, is slightly higher than what I'd usually run, but again, feeling good on this. And then the one that I mentioned in the previous one is Ment, which is obviously a very strong drug, and a lot of people cannot take this because the side effects it gives them mentally is pretty harsh. It turns people into psychopaths. However, for myself, it's just, well, I may be a psychopath, who knows? I just may not know. But for myself, I just feel like, I don't really feel anything on it, to be fair. Not as in a numbness, but I don't really see a change in my attitude or how I feel, or any anabolic, actually, for that matter. So we're running Ment at 300 milligram a week, which is, I believe, reasonably high for Ment. People would maybe take it between 50 and 200, so 300 is reasonably high. Alongside that, I'm taking Tren Hex, which is parabolan. So parabolan, again, being something that I respond with very, very well. I'm not particularly sure the reason for this. However, when I've run this in the past, I get a very good response. I feel very good on it. I get none of the sides of Tren, for example, where you get the acid reflux, any mental sides or anything like that. It's just for me, it's just almost like a very mellow, nice compound, which sounds ridiculous when in the same sentence as Tren. But we're running this at 200 milligram a week. So again, not massive, but at the same time, it's enough for it to be there and do its job. And then on top of that, finally, we're running Boldenon, so EQ Equipoise, which is frowned upon in, I'd say the modern bodybuilding world more so than anything, simply because, it is an equine drug. There's not been any trials on humans, or if there has been, I'm not sure. There'd be very little, and we don't really know much about it and what it does. And people, there are better drugs that do something similar for most people. However, again, for me personally, and there's a few guys who I'm close friends with, we say the same actually, that this this drug in particular, I've seen great things off it from myself personally. It's one of the few drugs I take and I notice I'm using. So I noticed I was on EQ, and we're running that at 500 milligrams per week. So again, middle of the road. Generally, I'd run in and around 2 gram total. So what's that? 517. So that's like 1750 in terms of oils a week, which is in and around what I would run. I've been much higher. And then also alongside this, as an oral, we're taking oxys, so oxy 50s if you want to call it, and we're running that at 100 milligram a day. So that's pretty harsh as an oral to be doing that. On rest days, I don't take it. I take it on a morning and pre-workout, so 50 milligram seems to be the best. I don't want to take 100 milligram in a wanna. It can affect your appetite and give you some stomach issues. If you're finding that when you're taking that, you maybe want to split it up throughout the day, every 6 hours, or break it down. Alongside that, we've got the other things, for example, like growth hormone, which is supposed to be in at 5IU. However, I'm not running that just yet. I haven't decided to take it just yet. I use a generic growth hormone, and what I find that gives me a lot of water retention at any point. Even in prep when I'm very lean, I can feel like almost a rubberiness to my skin. And I put it in the other day for the first time, and I could just tell within like a couple of days I was getting quite swollen from it. And I think that really added to the edema that I was having. So while I'm so sensitive, I'm just going to take it out. I'm going to allow my body to settle on this amount of food, just lose that sensitivity to, from just gaining that water. Then I will put it in. It's likely down the line within the next 2 or 3 weeks, we will add IGF-1 LR3. Which will be pre and post workout at around 50 micrograms. And alongside that, we're still running a Arimidex every 3 days, half a milligram. And that is T3 and T4. List is getting longer. T3 and T4, just in-app replacement. So I technically would run T3 at 37.5, T4 at 100 all year round for the last couple of off seasons. It's just where my range sits the best. But at the minute, we're just running replacement because that's what we were doing in prep. So we'll just run replacement. I will get my bloods done this weekend as well. Also, while I'm on this, there's no point in me waiting until I'm 6 to 7 weeks clear because my blood work is always great. If I've been off cycle 6 to 7 weeks, my blood work is always fantastic. So we're going to do it whilst I'm on cycle, at the very worst, after a reasonably long prep, and at the height of this cycle, at the end of recovery phase, and then obviously match the two. I'll share my blood work with you. Like I said, it's always good. The only time I've ever done it at the height was the day after I finished prep a couple of years ago, and it was actually really good, my blood work. So it'll be interesting to see if it's been come down from that point to this point at this time. So that is the cycle. That is everything. So that's the nutrition that I'm running. That is the training split. And that is the cycle. Like I said, this is aggressive, so this isn't something that you do all the time. This is something that we'll do for 5. If it's going really well, we may stretch it to 6 or 7 weeks. If it's going phenomenally, we may go 8. Very unlikely that we will. But at the minute, when I'm super responsive, when I lost 60 pounds, 70 pound in prep, my body likes to sit at 260. I really want to get up there as fast as I can, as lean as possible, and just get that baseline weight there, so then I can build on top of that. I need to be, I got to 285 last year in reasonable shape, to be fair. I need to be 295 plus, close to 300 pound really, in okay shape. I'm 6'1". Just over 6'1", so that's, if I'll do that in 6 months' time, because I will start prep in January, I'm not sure. Even if I could be a really clean 275 and just allow myself to come down. Last year, my off season was 18 months long, which means that when I was coming down in prep, there's a lot of body fat there that's been accumulated. Then fat cells are established, so it's going to take a lot longer to reduce that. Whereas this time I start prep, I'm only going to have been in off season for 6 months. Then fat cells are going to be very immature, they're not going to be very established. I'm going to get very lean very fast, again, which I think will lend itself to holding tissue, a fresher look, a leaner look much faster as well. So I'm excited for that. But first of all, a lot of work to do. Cycle training, nutrition, rebound phase,